The cafeteria smelled like overcooked protein paste and desperation. I sat at my usual corner table, trying to make myself as small as possible, which was not difficult considering my species. The Venlari were naturally compact. My 4 fingers trembled slightly as I pushed the gray slop around my plate, pretending to eat while my antenna twitched nervously at every loud sound. That was when I saw her. The human walked in like she owned the place, which was absurd because humans were new here, barely 3 cycles into their acceptance at the Galactic Institute. She was tall by most standards, though not unusually so, with dark brown skin and hair twisted into intricate patterns that defied my understanding of physics. Her name was Maya Kingston, and she moved with a confidence that seemed almost offensive. "Look at the little bug," a voice sneered from above me. My antenna flattened against my skull. Drek. Of course, it was Drek. The Korthan stood nearly 8 feet tall, with muscles that could crush a transport pod and a brain that could barely operate a door panel. His 3 friends flanked him, all equally oversized, all equally cruel. "Please," I whispered, my translator barely catching the word. "I have not done anything." "You exist," Drek said, and his massive hand swept my tray off the table. The protein paste splattered across the floor, across my clothing, across my dignity. "That is enough." The cafeteria had gone quiet. Everyone watched. No one helped. This was the routine, after all. Drek and his crew picked their target, usually me or one of the other smaller species, and everyone else looked away. Safe, comfortable, complicit. "Hey!" The voice cut through the silence like a plasma blade through butter. Drek turned, his expression shifting from cruel satisfaction to mild annoyance. "What do you want, human?" Maya Kingston stood 5 paces away, her arms crossed, her head tilted slightly to one side. Her eyes, I noticed, were a striking amber color that seemed to glow with something I could not quite identify. "I want you to apologize to my friend over there." Friend? I had never spoken to her. We had never even made eye contact. Drek laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your friend? The insect? Why would I apologize to food?" "Because," Maya said, taking a step closer, "if you do not, I will make you regret every decision you have made in your sad, tiny life up until this point. And trust me, I have a very creative imagination when it comes to regret." The entire cafeteria held its breath. Drek's face shifted through several colors, finally settling on a deep purple that I assumed meant anger. "You threaten me. You are barely half my size, human. Your species is weak, soft. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. What could you possibly do to me?" Maya smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. "Would you like to find out?" I should mention something about human reputation at this point. We had all heard the stories, of course. Every species in the Institute had access to the galactic network, and the humans had only been there for 2 standard years. But their reputation, that had spread like a virus. They came from a death world, fought wars against each other for entertainment, kept carnivorous animals as pets, and apparently thought danger was something to seek out rather than avoid. Most of us thought it was exaggeration. Propaganda, perhaps. Surely no species could be that insane. Drek apparently thought the same thing. He reached for Maya with one massive hand, intending to swat her aside like an annoying pest. What happened next took perhaps 3 seconds, but I will remember it for the rest of my extremely long Venlari lifespan. Maya moved. I cannot adequately describe it. She was not there, and then she was. and Drek's hand was bent at an angle that hands should not bend, and he was on his knees, screaming in 3 different frequencies. Maya stood behind him, still holding his wrist in some kind of lock that looked almost casual, like she was holding a cup of tea, rather than disabling a creature 3 times her mass. "Here is the thing about humans," Maya said conversationally, as if she were discussing the weather, rather than systematically dismantling a bully's ego. "We do not have claws, that is true. But we have something better. We have endurance, creativity, and spite. So much spite. You have no idea how far a human will go when properly motivated by spite." Drek tried to stand. Maya adjusted her grip, and he went back down, whimpering. "Now," Maya continued, "you are going to apologize to my friend. You are going to clean up this mess you made. And you are going to leave every single person in this cafeteria alone for the rest of your miserable academic career. Do we have an understanding?" "Yes," Drek gasped. "Yes, I understand." Maya released him, and he scrambled backward like a frightened cub. His 3 friends had already disappeared, vanishing into the crowd with impressive speed for creatures so large. The entire cafeteria stared, waiting. Drek looked at me, his eyes filled with pain and humiliation. I apologize. I am sorry." "Good boy," Maya said, then gestured to the mess on the floor. "Now clean." I watched in stunned silence as Drek, the terror of the Institute, the creature who had made my life miserable for 6 cycles, got down on his hands and knees and cleaned protein paste off the floor with napkins from the dispenser. When he finished, he left without looking at anyone, his massive shoulders hunched in defeat. The cafeteria erupted in whispers. Maya walked over to my table and sat down across from me, completely relaxed, as if she had just done something as mundane as checking her schedule. "Hey, I am Maya. You are—" "Kip," I managed. "My name is Kip." "Cool name. Listen, Kip. I noticed you have been getting hassled by those walking steroid advertisements for a while. Now, I thought maybe it was time someone did something about it. You okay?" Was I okay? I was covered in protein paste. My tray was destroyed. My pride was somewhere beneath the floor tiles. And yet, I felt something I had not felt in cycles. Safe. Yes, I said. "Thank you. But why? Why help me? You do not know me." Maya shrugged. "Because I have been the small kid before. The one everyone picks on because it is easy. And I decided a long time ago that if I ever got strong enough, I would make sure nobody else had to feel that way. Besides," she grinned, "putting bullies in their place is kind of my hobby." Over the next few weeks, I learned that Maya Kingston was not exaggerating. Where she went, bullies seemed to evaporate. Not because she was looking for fights, but because word spread faster than light travel. The human was not to be messed with. And more importantly, anyone under her protection was similarly protected. I found myself in that category, much to my surprise. We started eating lunch together. She would tell me stories about Earth, her home world, and I would listen with increasing horror and fascination. Apparently, humans evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. And somehow, instead of being destroyed, humans thrived. They conquered their world, then looked to the stars and decided to conquer those too. "We had these things called persistence hunts," Maya explained one day, munching on something she claimed was a sandwich, but looked like it could be used as a building material. Our ancestors would pick an animal, any animal, and just follow it. For hours, sometimes days. The animal would run, and we would walk. It would rest, and we would keep coming. Eventually, the animal would just collapse from exhaustion, and we would kill it. We were not the fastest or the strongest, but we were the most stubborn. We won by simply refusing to give up. That is terrifying, I said. I know, right? Maya beamed with pride. Evolution made us into endurance predators with anxiety and a tendency to form emotional attachments to literally anything. We are basically weapons with self-esteem issues. Despite her jokes, I noticed something about Maya. She was always watching, always aware. Her eyes constantly scanned the cafeteria, the corridors, the recreational areas. She was looking for trouble, specifically trouble aimed at those who could not defend themselves. And then came the day she found it. His name was Yorn, and he was a Felkar, a species known for their speed and aggressive territorial behavior. He had been tormenting a young Pixith student, a small, fragile species that resembled earth insects more than anything else. The Pixith, whose name was Tinsel, was curled up in a corner of the library, shaking, while Jorn loomed over her with his claws extended. "Please stop," Tinsel whispered, her voice barely audible. "I did not mean to sit in your area. I did not know." "Ignorance is no excuse," Jorn hissed. "This is my table, my section, and you contaminated it with your presence." "Is that so?" Maya had appeared out of nowhere, stepping between Jorn and Tinsel with the casual grace of someone who had done this before, many times before. Jorn's eyes narrowed. "The human! I heard about you. You think you can protect everyone? You think you are some kind of hero?" "Hero? No. I just really hate bullies. It is like my thing." Maya glanced back at Tinsel. "You okay, kid?" Tinsel nodded quickly, her compound eyes glistening with what I assumed were tears. "Good. Hey, question for you, Jorn, was it? Do you know what we do to bullies on Earth?" Jorn laughed, a sharp, barking sound. "Your empty threats do not frighten me, human. You may have surprised Drek, but I am faster, smarter. You will not lay a hand on me before I shred you." "Oh, sweetie," Maya said, and her smile was absolutely terrifying. Who said anything about hands? What happened next was later described by witnesses as the most one-sided fight in Institute history. Jorn was fast, that much was true. But Maya was something else entirely. She did not fight like other species fought. There was no honor, no formal combat stance, no waiting for turns. She fought dirty. A kick to the knee that made Jorn stumble. An elbow to the throat that made him gag. A sweep of his legs that put him on the ground. And then, while he was down, she just stopped. She stood over him, not even breathing hard, and waited. Jorn tried to get up. Maya's foot pressed gently against his chest, keeping him down. "Here is the thing about speed," Maya said calmly, as if she were teaching a class. "It only matters if you can use it. And you were so focused on being fast that you forgot to think. That is your problem. That is every bully's problem. You mistake aggression for strength, intimidation for power. But real strength, it is not about how hard you can hit. It is about why you are fighting in the first place." She removed her foot and stepped back. Jorn scrambled to his feet, his expression a mixture of rage and fear. "Now get out of here," Maya said, "and if I catch you bothering Tinsel, or anyone else, again, we will have a much longer conversation. One you will not enjoy." Jorn fled. Tinsel looked up at Maya with something approaching worship. "Thank you. Thank you so much. How can I repay you?" Maya knelt down, bringing herself to Tinsel's level. "You want to repay me? Stand up for yourself next time. Or better yet, stand up for someone else. Be the person who helps when everyone else is looking away. That is how you repay me." Word spread faster after that incident. Maya Kingston the human, was not just capable of violence. She was strategic about it, calculated, and, more importantly, she genuinely cared about protecting those who could not protect themselves. Students started seeking her out, the small, the weak, the bullied. They would find her, in the library or the training center or the cafeteria, and they would ask for help. Sometimes it was advice, sometimes it was intervention, sometimes it was just the comfort of knowing someone was watching out for them. Maya never turned anyone away. I asked her once why she did it, why she spent so much time and energy on problems that were not hers. We were in the observation dome, looking out at the stars, and she was quiet for a long moment before answering. "When I was 10, she said finally, I was the smallest kid in my class. Easy target. There was this group of older kids who would wait for me after school. They would take my stuff, push me around, call me names. It went on for months. And you know what the worst part was? Not the bruises or the stolen lunches. It was the fact that everyone saw it happening, and nobody did anything. Teachers, other students, everyone just looked away because it was easier than getting involved." "What happened?" I asked. "My grandmother found out. She was this tiny old lady, maybe 5 feet tall, but she had survived wars, poverty, discrimination, all of it. And she told me something I have never forgotten. She said that the world is full of people who will hurt others simply because they can. And the only thing that stops them is people who are willing to say no, who are willing to stand up even when it is hard, even when it is scary, even when it would be easier to look away." Maya turned to look at me, and her eyes were fierce. "So that is what I do, Kip. I say no, I stand up, because if I do not, if people like me do not, then nothing ever changes. The bullies win. The cruel ones stay in power. And the galaxy becomes a darker place." I understood then Maya Kingston was not fighting bullies because she enjoyed violence or wanted to prove something. She was fighting because someone had to. Because it was right. Because that is what humans do. They see a problem, and they refuse to accept it. They see suffering, and they refuse to allow it. They are stubborn, persistent, and absolutely unwilling to give up once they have decided something matters. And apparently, we mattered to Maya. The semester continued, and the bullying at the Institute decreased dramatically. Not because of any new rules or administrative action, but because everyone knew that if you messed with someone, you would have to answer to the human. And nobody wanted that. Drek switched programs entirely, requesting a transfer to a different campus. Yorn became quiet, subdued, staying far away from anyone who looked vulnerable. Other bullies simply stopped, realizing that the risk was no longer worth the reward. But there were always new threats, always new challenges. And Maya was ready for all of them. Because that, I learned, is what humans do best. They protect, they persist, they endure, and they absolutely refuse to let the darkness win. The incident that changed everything happened during the station games, an annual competition where students from different species tested their abilities in various challenges. Combat simulations, problem-solving exercises, endurance trials, the usual academic nonsense designed to foster cooperation and mutual respect. Except it never worked that way. The games were brutal, competitive, and brought out the worst in everyone, particularly the Zenthari delegation. The Zenthari were apex predators from a high-gravity world built like walking tanks with scales that could deflect energy weapons and strength that exceeded even the Korthan. They had dominated the station games for 17 cycles, and they were not subtle about their superiority. Their team captain, a massive specimen named Vorak, made Drek look like a friendly house pet. I was not participating, obviously. My species was built for technical work, not physical competition. But Maya had signed up for multiple events, including the combat simulation finals, which surprised exactly no one. "You realize the Zenthari have never lost this event," I told her, as we walked toward the arena. "They are designed for warfare. Their entire culture revolves around dominance through strength." "Sounds boring," Maya said, stretching her arms above her head. "Back home, we had this saying. The bigger they are, the harder they fall." I always wanted to test that theory on something really big. The arena was packed. Students from dozens of species filled the viewing platforms, all eager to watch the combat simulations. The rules were simple enough. 2 competitors entered a holographic environment filled with obstacles, weapons, and challenges. First one to incapacitate their opponent won. Safety protocols prevented actual death, but injuries were common and expected. Maya's first 3 matches were almost embarrassing. She dismantled a Horvath warrior in 40 seconds, using his own momentum against him. A Kelson speedster lasted 2 minutes before Maya predicted her movement pattern and clotheslined her into unconsciousness. A Bruthan heavy fighter tried to use his armor as an advantage, so Maya targeted his joints until he could not move. Each victory was surgical, efficient, and absolutely terrifying to watch. Then came the finals. Vorak stood across the arena from Maya, his scales gleaming under the lights, his eyes filled with contempt. He was easily twice her size, with claws that could tear through steel and a jaw that could crush bone. The holographic environment materialized around them, a ruined cityscape filled with debris and shadows. "Human," Vorak's voice boomed through the arena speakers. "I have heard much about you. They say you protect the weak, that you fight without honor, that you use cowardly tactics instead of true strength." Maya yawned. Actually yawned. "Are you going to talk, or are we fighting? Because I have lunch plans and you are really cutting into my sandwich time." The crowd went silent. Vorak's scales darkened, a sign of extreme anger in his species. "I will enjoy breaking you, little mammal. When I am finished, you will learn your place. You will learn that humans are nothing compared to true warriors." "Cool speech," Maya said, cracking her knuckles. "Did you practice that in the mirror? Because it needs work. Maybe add some pyrotechnics. Make it more dramatic." The starting signal blared. Vorak charged immediately, moving with shocking speed for something his size, his claws extended, aiming for Maya's throat, going for a quick kill. Standard Zenthari tactics. Overwhelming force applied immediately. Maya was not there. She had rolled to the side, grabbing a piece of debris from the ground and hurling it at Vorak's face. It bounced off harmlessly, but it made him flinch, made him turn his head for just a fraction of a second. That was all Maya needed. She was behind him, landing a kick to the back of his knee. Zenthari knees, despite their armor, had a vulnerable joint, necessary for their mobility. Maya had clearly done her research. Vorak stumbled, but recovered quickly, spinning with his claws extended. Maya ducked under the swipe, moved inside his reach, too close for him to use his size advantage. She struck his ribs, his throat, his eyes, targeting every weak point with precision that suggested hours of study. "See? This is the problem with you bully types," Maya said, dancing away from another wild swing. "You rely on intimidation and natural advantages, but you never actually learn to fight. You never have to, because everyone backs down before it gets serious." Vorak roared, a sound that shook the arena, and charged again. This time, Maya did not dodge. She braced herself, and when he made contact, she used a move I had never seen before. She grabbed his arm, twisted her body, and somehow used his own momentum to flip him over her shoulder. A Zenthari, flipped by a human half his size. The crowd exploded in shocked chatter. Vorak hit the ground hard, and Maya was on him instantly, her knee on his chest, her hands positioned near his throat. Not touching, not choking, just hovering there as a promise. "Yield," she said quietly. "Never." Vorak tried to throw her off, but she adjusted her position, applied pressure to a nerve cluster near his shoulder. His arm went limp. "Yield," Maya repeated. "I will kill you." Maya sighed. "Wrong answer." What happened next happened very fast. Maya stood up, grabbed Vorak's limp arm, and twisted it behind his back while simultaneously sweeping his legs. He went face down into the holographic dirt, and she planted her foot on his neck. Not hard enough to injure, just hard enough to make a point. "Here is what you are going to learn today," Maya said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Strength is not about size. It is not about scales or claws or natural advantages. It is about will, about refusing to quit, about fighting for something bigger than yourself. You fight for ego, for dominance, for pride. I fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. And that, you overgrown lizard, makes me stronger than you will ever be." She increased the pressure slightly. "Now, yield." Vorak's voice was barely a whisper. "I yield." Maya stepped back, and the holographic environment dissolved. Medical staff rushed in to check on Vorak, who was conscious but thoroughly humiliated. The crowd was absolutely silent for 3 full seconds. Then they erupted. Not just cheering, roaring. Students from dozens of species, many of whom had been terrorized by the Zenthari for years, were screaming their approval. Some were crying. Others were laughing. All of them were celebrating the same thing. Someone had finally beaten the unbeatable. Maya walked off the arena floor like it was nothing, grabbing a towel from an attendant and wiping sweat from her face. I met her at the entrance, along with Tinsel, and about 20 other students who Maya had helped over the semester. "That was incredible," Tinsel squeaked. "You destroyed him. You made him look foolish." "Nah," Maya said, draping the towel around her neck. "I just showed him what happens when you underestimate people. He will recover. Hopefully he will learn something. If not, well, there are plenty of other humans where I came from who would be happy to teach the same lesson." "Is that a threat?" a new voice asked. We turned to see Administrator Quellis, a Eutharian official who ran the institute. Her 4 eyes were focused entirely on Maya, and her expression was difficult to read. Eutharians were known for their neutrality, their dedication to order and rules. They did not appreciate disruption. "Nope," Maya said cheerfully. "Just a statement of fact. Humans do not like bullies, Administrator. We really, really do not like bullies. So if your station has a bully problem, you will probably have more humans showing up to fix it. Supply and demand, you know?" Quellis studied Maya for a long moment. Then, to my absolute shock, she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there. "Miss Kingston, I have been running this institute for 32 cycles. In that time, I have witnessed countless incidents of harassment, intimidation, and abuse. I have filed reports, issued warnings, created new policies. None of it worked. Do you know why? Because policies do not scare bullies," Maya said. "People do." "Precisely." Quellis nodded slowly. "You have accomplished in 1 semester what I could not achieve in 3 decades. The bullying incidents at this institute have dropped by 78% since your arrival. Student well-being reports have improved across all demographics. You have made this facility safer through direct action, which goes against every administrative protocol we have. Maya winced. Am I in trouble? On the contrary, I am offering you a position, Student Safety Coordinator. It would be part-time, allowing you to continue your studies, but it would give you official authority to intervene in harassment situations. You would have my full support and the support of the Institute administration. I had never seen Maya Kingston speechless before. It was oddly satisfying. Really? Maya managed. You want to pay me to beat up bullies? I want to empower you to protect vulnerable students using whatever methods you deem necessary within reasonable limits. There will be paperwork, of course, training, oversight committees. But fundamentally, yes. I want you to continue doing what you have been doing, with official backing. Maya looked at me, at Tinsel, at all the students gathered around her. Then she looked back at Quellis. I want to make one change to that offer. Go on. I do not do this alone. I want to train others. Create a whole team of students dedicated to standing up for people who need help. Not just humans, all species. Anyone willing to learn, willing to fight for what is right. We teach them conflict resolution, self-defense, how to spot bullying before it escalates. Make it a real program. Quellis's smile grew wider. That is acceptable. In fact, it is excellent. Consider it approved. And that was how the Institute Defense Initiative began. Over the following months, Maya recruited and trained dozens of students from different species. She taught them human martial arts, conflict de-escalation techniques, strategic thinking. But more than that, she taught them something fundamental. She taught them that they mattered, that they had the power to make a difference, that standing up for others was not just noble, it was necessary. I joined the program, despite my small size and general cowardice. Maya insisted that intelligence and observation were just as valuable as physical strength. She was right, as usual. I became the program's intelligence coordinator, identifying potential threats before they escalated. Tinsel joined too, along with a reformed Korthan named Gresh, who had been one of Drek's followers. He had approached Maya one day, apologized for his past behavior, and asked to learn from her. She accepted without hesitation, understanding that people could change if given the opportunity. Even some Zenthari students joined, wanting to learn the techniques that had defeated their champion. Maya taught them gladly, never holding grudges, never refusing anyone who came with genuine intentions. The Institute transformed. It was not perfect. There were still incidents, still conflicts, still problems. But now, there was a system in place. Now there were people watching, people willing to intervene, people who refused to accept cruelty as normal. On Maya's last day before graduating, the Institute held a ceremony. Administrator Quellis presented her with the Medallion of Service, the highest honor the facility could bestow. But more importantly, hundreds of students attended. Students she had helped, students she had trained, students whose lives she had changed simply by refusing to accept the way things were. I stood beside her on that platform, looking out at all those faces, and I realized something profound. Humans were terrifying, yes. They came from a death world, evolved as endurance predators, fought wars for generations, but that was not what made them dangerous. What made them dangerous was their absolute, stubborn, unshakable belief that things could be better, that injustice was intolerable, that protecting the vulnerable was not just a choice, It was a responsibility. They saw darkness and declared war on it. They saw suffering and refused to allow it. They were not the strongest species, or the fastest, or the smartest, but they were the most determined. And determination, I learned, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. "So what now?" I asked Maya as we walked away from the ceremony, medals around our necks, the future uncertain. "Now?" Maya grinned. "Now I graduate, go back to Earth, probably come back as an official ambassador. And wherever I go, I keep doing what I do, fighting bullies, protecting people, being a general pain in the neck for anyone who thinks cruelty is acceptable." She paused. "You should come with me, you know. The galaxy is huge, Kip. Lots of people who need help. Lots of bullies who need to learn lessons." "That sounds dangerous," I said. "Probably. And exhausting. Definitely. And we might get hurt. Or worse. Almost certainly." Maya looked at me, her amber eyes bright with that familiar fierce determination. "So, you in?" I thought about the scared Venlari who had sat alone in the cafeteria, covered in protein paste, convinced the universe was cruel and nothing would ever change. Then I thought about who I had become, who Maya had helped me become. "Yes," I said, "I am in. Because that is what humans teach you, not just how to fight, but how to hope, how to believe that one person can make a difference, how to stand up when everything inside you is screaming to sit down. They teach you that heroes are not born. They are made, one choice at a time, one stand at a time, one moment of refusing to accept injustice at a time. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, a human comes along and shows you what real courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear win. Maya Kingston taught me that, and I will spend the rest of my life teaching it to others. Because the galaxy needs more people like her. More protectors, more fighters, more stubborn, persistent, absolutely unreasonable defenders of those who cannot defend themselves. The bullies thought she was weak. They thought humans were soft, vulnerable, easy prey. They learned what fear feels like, and the rest of us learned what hope looks like. That is the human gift to the galaxy. Not technology or weapons or strength, but the simple, revolutionary idea that things can be better, and the willingness to fight until they are.